This episode of the Capsule in Conversation is brought to you by Harrogate Springwater. Famous for its waters since 1571, Harrogate is Britain's premium natural source water. Hello all, you are listening to the Capsule in Conversation podcast. I'm Natalie Anderson and today I'm joined by the founder of children's yoga and mental health platform Cosmic Kids, Jaime Amor, to talk how to protect your children's well-being in a digital world and the importance of mindfulness for both children and adults. So take a minute and get ready to join us in our conversation. Hello all, thank you so much for being with me. I am very excited as today I'm joined by the founder of one of the UK's leading children's wellbeing and mental health apps, Cosmic Kids. Having amassed over 1 million subscribers on YouTube, she and her husband Martin have been flying the flag for the importance of yoga and mindfulness on children over the past decade and have built a strong platform on which parents can rely to help keep their children active and entertained. She is the fabulous Jaime Amor. Hi, Jaime.
Hi, Natalie. Oh, thanks for having me on.
Oh, thank you for being with me. I have got a feeling that to parents everywhere, you are literally like a real life angel / Disney princess.
Oh,
how do you feel about that?
It's amazing, actually, because it's, there we've been creating these videos for the last 10 years, just consistently putting them out. And it was really just the lockdown, the first one in March 2020, when I think a lot of people just were casting around looking for something. The teachers sent home a list of useful resources and we were on that list. And there we were. And it was a thing that they could use to help try and reduce a little bit of anxiety and help keep the kind of routine going at home when everything else was kind of up in the air and all a bit uncertain. So yeah, it's kind of evolved and become a strange sort of thing that I'm now referred to as some sort of Mary Poppins.
But to be honest, it's so needed. And I know myself, I mean, my son's a bit older, but, you know, having a resource that you can go to which keeps the children entertained whilst being calm. And in that particular period of time, as you said then, children's anxiety was just through the roof. You know, there were all these adults being really weird and really strange. And kids are like, I don't know what's going on. I can't go to school. I can't see my friends. Little ones not getting those social skills. You know, for you guys, I suppose in a comparison, I'm sure you get this a lot, a bit like the PE with Joe. You know, that same kind of thing of how to, in a smallish space in the house, how to keep children active. Now, you trained as an actor. You did a classical training course as an actor. And I know myself, having that background, that when you are sometimes between jobs, kids entertainment it's amazing. And it's so brilliant though and rewarding. I mean, is that the same for you?
Totally. And I have to say, I learned so much doing that kids entertainment about performing and about holding the attention of an audience, you know, because kids are, I think, the most honest audience you will ever have, and they're the most vocal, and you know, they will tell you if they're bored, if they don't like it, if they'd rather do something else, and so actually when you work with kids, you really learn what actually works and how what you do as a performer can really take a story one way or the other to make it more interesting or not. You know, you get the feedback straight away. So I totally buy that. And I know that kids entertainment life was, well, it was a lifeline for me because it meant that I could pay my rent and, you know, it was bread and butter. But at the same time, from a professional point of view, it taught me tons about how to be engaging and how to really reach that audience. So you're telling a good story.
It is a difficult audience as well, because as you say, they do lose their concentration quite quickly. And if you're not expressive or you don't hold them, then it's over. And for you, you know, you've produced 527 videos on YouTube, which is incredible because the amount of content that you've got there and each one being different. Where do you draw your inspiration from to get the, you know, that level of content?
Yeah, I think really it's all drawn from the kids and what I see kids experiencing and also what kids are learning about, you know, whether it's space or it's the ocean or it's continents and what's going on in the world, you know, that actually kids are really alive to story, and stories come in all forms and shapes and sizes. And the thing that what's so wonderful with stories often is that they can revolve around animals, and animals can be our kind of proxy for humans. And kids just automatically generally love animals. They're cute, they're really sort of relatable, and you sort of you're on their side straight away. So if we can create a story that has an animal as its protagonist, as the main hero, the kids relate to that hero, and we follow that hero on its journey, then the kids get to experience that journey too, and support that hero, and learn a bunch of tools and techniques along the way. And so I've used that as the basis really for making really inspiring stories and making lots of them, because there's always a situation that you're going to find yourself in life that you can transfer to an animal, and that's what that animal's world, that's going to make it relatable but also really fun to do, and also works beautifully for yoga, because yoga is all sort of seated in nature and animals and the things that are in our universe. So,
and I think that is quite a tried and tested formula with kids television. If you look at things, like for me it was like Rainbow when I was like the Bear and everything else, and then you look at Sesame Street, and you look at even Sooty and Sweep and God and the Gopher. All of these things are animals, as you say. Children seem to interact with them much better. The yoga side of your app and the business, where did that start? When did you put the connection together with actually children receive this really well?
Yeah, well, interestingly, it was in my kids' parties. So I was practicing yoga myself as a way of just trying to stay sort of fit and sane when I was in London auditioning for this, that and the other. And I found what I would do at the beginning of my parties, I would usually tell a story about a witch just to grab the kids' attention. And I would tell them that this witch was going to come to the party and steal everyone's fairy dust, unless we knew 5 really special moves. I mean, already the kids were in a bit of a kind of moment of like, what? There's a witch coming? What are you on about? And so, but I had their attention, so there was some jeopardy. And then there was this idea that if they knew these 5 special moves, which were all yoga poses, that we could stop the witch in her tracks and she wouldn't steal any more fairy dust. She would be gone. And the kids just totally hooked onto it. And I found that when I got the kids actually moving their bodies, it was a lot easier for them to hold their attention than it was just to have them sat in a circle looking at me, because, that's when the distractions come. So the physicality, the movement, the use of their body was a key principle that I felt meant that I held their attention in that first 10, 15 minutes of a kid's party. It was that I really honed in on. And then when I started diving into my yoga a lot more, I kept just seeing all these Western kind of correlations for the poses, like, the boat pose or the tree pose or the lion pose or the camel pose. And you can it starts to become like a vocabulary for a story. And I thought, well, this is sort of what I'm doing already with the kids' party. But if I can actually turn this into a proper narrative, then it becomes a really interesting way to practice yoga, frankly, because it can be a bit dry sometimes. But putting it into the sequence of a story suddenly makes it a little bit more interesting, and you can enjoy that jeopardy, and you can enjoy the fact that your body is experiencing and your feelings are experiencing all this stuff that's going on in the story, because you're acting it out, essentially. So I started putting those things together, and then writing my own stories. But then I also started diving more into the yoga and learning as much about the yoga as I could, because it's full of stories. It's in its DNA. Yeah. And I then was working in a school, and I was doing a cookery club as well as the kids' parties, and just trying to make ends meet. And I was also thought, I'm going to learn how to be a yoga teacher properly. So I went and did my own teacher training, and that was a 2-year process, and that just totally got me absorbed in the philosophy of it, the whole, obviously the whole anatomical side of it as well, and an appreciation of what the yoga poses do for us. And I was just seeing more and more the kind of equation come together. And it was when I was working in the school, and I said, hey, would you want to have a go at doing a kids after school club doing yoga? And he was just like, I think the parents would be really up for that, actually. That sounds really cool. And as a concept, he really got it as a head teacher. And then we tried it worked, and then it led to more and more classes. So yeah, it was a real sort of hunch that I had, but
and an organic process, as you say,
organic.
like quite lived experience of seeing how these children react and then building and building. Because then obviously then you get the kind of like the science behind it of actually what the benefits of this mindfulness and yoga is for children. And because it's something that I'm concerned about, and I know a lot of parents are, the world is so digital now, and it's how do we keep our children rooted in like earthy things, you know, like things that are of us, not just a digital kind of prop or tablet or something. Like how do we, you know, yes, we can take them for walks and things, but you know, if they're going to spend as much time holding onto a phone or a tablet or whatever it is, and we all do it, we're all guilty of it because we're busy people, it's easy to give your child a tablet or a phone and just say, oh, watch YouTube, you know, just for 10 minutes. Like it's the iPad babysitter, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So for something like what you've done, you know, creating Cosmic Kids and us as a parent feeling like, I used to feel it with Peppa Pig, and they used to think it can't be that bad, and he's learning things and he's, you know, he's understanding and he really enjoys it. I bet you must have the same feedback from parents about you know, the fact that their children are learning, and there is science behind this, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think because it's active, you know, I mean, the big principle that you were just describing was, you know, we're often in our heads, you know, and actually it's very easy to get into your head and into swiping and into the bored of that, swipe again. But if you're physically, your body's engaged, and that's one of the key principles that I learned back at those kids' parties, when the kids were moving their bodies and stretching them to their extremes, they enter into it with a much bigger level. It's not passive anymore, it's active. And I think that activity is a real key thing, not just for their physical health, but for mental health, and to actually know that you're a physical presence, your whole body from your tip of your toes to the top of your head, you know, you're an energy ball, and actually this is your key. All of the power is inside you, you know, your body is your key to looking after yourself. And I do think that actually with kids that, you know, might get a bit sort of like rabbit hole with screens, you know, and it does happen, that the more that of that screen time that can be used for doing physical things, the better, you know. And so if there's a balance, and the kids get it and they acknowledge how they feel when they do it, they're like, I feel good, you know, that feels nice, you know, then they're going to do more of it. And kids are instinctive, you know, they want to survive, they want to thrive, and that's a chip inside of all of us. And so when they do something and it feels good and they feel stronger for it and wiser for it or calmer for it, they go back and do it again and again and again. And I think it's that thing. It's sometimes people are very good at creating that dopamine hit with the right sort of content, but actually you can create that dopamine hit from moving your body. And I think it's about making sure what we serve kids in a digital space has that power, has that kind of thrust of being about moving in your body.
That is so true, because like my son is kind of getting into gaming now, and he believes I've seen it myself, and we absolutely encourage him to be active. But when I see him kind of go into this gaming zone, it's everything. It's his mind. It's everything through the screen. So his body is stood still, but his mind is going absolutely crazy. Whereas, as you just said, then the connection, you lose that connection. Whereas connecting, actually, how does this feel in my body, so that it becomes a real sensation and not a fabricated one that's just in his imagination? Because I think there's a worry, especially with the gaming side of things, that they become desensitized to certain movement. So, for example, if you bang into something on a game and it doesn't physically hurt you, you think that you're invincible. Whereas if you're moving your body and you do get tired and you do kind of like bump into things and you have a physical reaction, your brain will understand that. Because I think that's the important thing, isn't it? Like you're saying, is getting that correlation between the mind and the body.
Yeah.
And I think for parents as well, you know, especially with little ones, very little ones, that group activity, being able to have the activity with the younger child together, that's helpful for both, isn't it? For both the adult and the child.
Oh, it's so wonderful when you see parents doing it with their kids and grandparents doing it with their kids and teachers joining in with the kids in the classrooms, because you really get this sense of it. It's enormous for the kids' confidence when they have their grown-ups joining in with them, because not only are they generally a bit more mobile, maybe, or a bit more flexible, and they'll be watching their mum trying to get their foot to her ear, trying to answer the foot phone, and the kids will be like, why is this hard for you, and that whole thing of the confidence that it gives the kids when they've got some like real kind of ability in something, and they experience that alongside the grown-ups that they love most in the world. It creates such a strong bond, again, because you're both physically engaged in the same thing, but you're equals. And I think for so many kids is that they're not equals in many respects. They don't feel equal. They don't feel like they have much agency and control and ability to sort of drive and direct things. They're told what to do, when to do it, how to do it, from the minute they get up to the minute they go to bed. And so when they get this opportunity to feel in control of something and in power of it, and they're doing it alongside someone they love really dearly, who they respect a lot, it's an incredibly strong, bonding and memorable experience, and visceral for life then. And I think it means that you are connected, going back to that point about the real world, about you, relationships, your environment, because you're in that moment. You're actually in you're being as mindful as you possibly can be. You're totally in that moment, rather than sort of being lost in your head. I mean, that whole, I find it extraordinary when kids, and it is amazing, and grown-ups do it too, that kind of gaming mentality of being sort of sucked into a world of a game. The fact that your mind is still triggering all the things that it triggers if you think you've got a saber-toothed tiger running towards you. Yeah. It's still releasing all of that cortisol, all of that kind of that stress hormone and adrenaline, but it's got nowhere to go in your body. Yeah, and so that physical, just that awareness, if kids can just have that little iota of awareness that that's kind of what's going on, then they've got this kind of like, actually, I'm going to take myself off for a bit of a dance, or I'm going to go off for a bit of a skit in the garden, or whatever it is, just to sort of know that their body is still connected to their brain, that their nervous system is working the whole system. It isn't just in here, in this little bit that you see. It's the whole body, and actually you need to kind of let it out.
It's really important that you said that, though, because again, just another penny's just dropped for me. And I think, we let children play on things, and then we tell them to sit still, don't move, sit still. Yeah, like, so they're doing this, and as you said, their triggers are going, with the cortisol and the stress and the everything else, but we're telling them to sit still, and yet actually what they're trying to do is expel all this energy to get rid of it, because it's actually harmful for their little systems as well. Totally. We don't want to get children into a place of heightened anxiety from being tiny kids. We want them to, if they're going to feel any form of fear, it to be a genuine state, not something that they're used to living in. So we do need to be more mindful as parents to say, right, okay, if we've given our kids time to game or to do that kind of thing, then they must counterbalance that and let that energy go, because otherwise, if they are holding on to it, potentially we are setting them up really badly for having like heightened anxiety as they get older. Absolutely. Would you agree?
Yeah, totally. And it is that kind of, it's that passivity of that kind of just mental kind of like stimulation, where you're just sort of like a zombie almost. You're just totally locked into it, that you totally, like you say, need to balance with activity. So passivity and activity are totally, they've got to go hand in hand. And, anything that's leaning on one rather than the other is going to create a stress point. And like you say, that is the source of anxiety. When you're in your head a lot, you're constantly trying to problem solve, or you're doing something on a screen, it becomes your kind of fallback. You're constantly in a kind of worrying, problem solving kind of state. And like you say, that just will build as a kind of like a kind of bottleneck. And then it can usually cause some sort of eruption at some point, and that's why kids just so need that outlet. And one of the things that makes so many schools are so good at this, but so many I know have to, they will chop the physical education, they will chop the physical stuff, or the songs or the plays or whatever it is, that will be the first thing to go. And I know that's down to the fact that, we've been dealing with COVID and trying to keep everyone safe, but it's just such a shame that the first thing to go is always phys ed, is always PE. And actually, the physical is almost more, I think, important for everyone's kind of dealing with life than anything learning what a subordinate whatever it is in grammar. I just think I know everything's got its place, but I feel like that physicality cannot be stressed enough as to how important it is to actually keep everyone's anxiety at a level that they can manage,
And it is a collective thing, because, if we look at childhood obesity at the minute, we have a serious problem in this country, across the world, but definitely in this country, because of a sedentary lifestyle and because of what children are doing. And we've got to be more, we've got to kind of be more invested in that as parents. And I know it is really hard when you're busy working parents, but, the after school clubs, like you said, we must challenge our schools as well. If our schools are cutting back on things like that, we need to be able to say, well, look, actually what you're saying right there is that a child's physical well-being is just as important as whether they can do spelling and everything else. Because
absolutely.
if you don't have a child that feels healthy and is well, then all the other stuff doesn't matter, really.
Exactly.
Because they can't live anyway.
Yeah, it's a basic need. It really is. It's totally basic. And also, I don't know, that whole thing of having that activity in life it will feed into everything. It will feed into that child's ability to learn. That's often the thing, is that if they feel fidgety or wriggly, then they find it hard to listen, that it will affect that attention span thing. If they've had an outlet for it, if they feel like they've had their physical, needs met, then they're that much more able to sit still. Often I find in just within a yoga adventure, I will ramp up the action and the heart rate kind of poses. And then I will meet it with a moment of like lying back and just closing our eyes. And the kids are ready for it, because they've done that boost of physicality before they've done the kind of, I can now be calm, because it's all that balance of kind of giving them that balance. And I just think we can't expect kids to just sit and listen and sit still, as you say, without, and kids love moving. They're born wriggling and reaching and stretching and crawling, and that's how they find out about the world. And I just think we can't cap that too early. It has to have room. It needs to express itself. So
And in terms of like your, Cosmic Kids, I know it's you and Martin that do it together, and, there's you creating all the content and writing it, and then Martin kind of putting it all together, and, as that partnership, where else are you wanting to go with it? Because as an actual kind of umbrella, it's such a brilliant concept. And are you wanting to get into schools as well as, being online, doing like a tour or getting into schools?
Definitely. I mean, certainly with schools, because we're already in a lot of schools, which I find just extraordinary. I mean, and really exciting. The fact is, teachers are amazingly resourceful people, and they will they scour. They're always on the lookout and talking to each other about what works and what they're using. And so Cosmic Kids, they were our teachers, are and still are were our first fans and continue to be. And the wonderful thing about Cosmic Kids is that when generally people find us, they stick with us. I mean, it is amazing actually to sort of feel that support coming from so many teachers who not only use it day to day very regularly, but will share and tell each other about it. And that is incredible to us. And from that, we really want to kind of build and give the teachers back something else that they can use more constructively. So yes, we are at the moment trying to build a kind of social and emotional learning kind of package around our content that doesn't detract anything of the fun of Cosmic Kids, because I think that's like number one key thing, is that exercise needs to be fun for kids. Like, just rule one, it can't be a chore. It needs to just, like, kids need to finish that exercise and go, I love that, if they're going to do it again, and I think if we make it too hard or not achievable or just a bit sort of too much, then they generally sort of pull back. They're human beings after all. So I think we make it fun, but we also create a structure that totally fits and works with where a teacher's coming from. They've got a lot of stuff to get through, and now a lot more kind of red tape that they've got to sort of tick, really. And I get it. And it's great that actually we're more aware now of what we've got to provide for kids as they go through education. But I think if what we can do, and we're well placed to do this, is to put a structure in place around our content that makes it very easy for teachers to use, that gives the kids a really rewarding system of going, great, okay, I've now understood more about what self-regulation is, or I've built my awareness to this point, and I'm feeling like I can balance a lot better on my legs now, when I stand on one leg. Just little basic things around them being aware of their coordination, their strength, their balance, their mobility, but feeling that it's all being kind of that they're in charge of it.
Yeah, I think that's important what you said as well about kids being in charge and us giving them agency to be in charge of their own bodies, because you're right, we do try and say, you must do this and you must do this and you must listen to me, and they're just constantly being bossed about, and then we wonder why they're rebellious, why they go, no, I'm not doing it anymore. You wouldn't do it anymore, would you, if someone was like prodding you? And I also got speaking to Dr. Zoe on another podcast, and she said to me that by the time young women get to the ages between 12 and 14, only 9% of them are doing physical activity, which is really worrying. But when she probed and found out more about it, it was the fact that they didn't like the way that the PE was set up. And I think something like what you're doing, would you look to doing it in a slightly different capacity for older kids, for kids that, kind of, that they can get on board with it too? Because for a lot of people, the classical PE kind of setup, it just doesn't appeal to lots of kids, does it?
No, it doesn't. And we found this a lot. And actually, when I was talking to a few journalists over the lockdown and things, because they were getting in touch, because obviously Joe was doing an amazing job getting us all up doing our kind of 9 a.m. PE call. Yeah. But there were a lot of kids who were tuning into that, and it was sending them the heebie-jeebies in them, because they're not big fans of PE at the best of times. So they were like, I've got to do it, and so they were turning to Cosmic Kids as their kind of alternative, the thing that would be a bit more kind of, it's not competitive, it's not judgmental. It means that you're in your own body, you're in your own space when you do yoga, and I think that goes for whether you're a tween, you're that kind of 9 to 14 age, or you're under that age. The fact is, kids don't necessarily need more competition in their life. They possibly need just a little bit more, a few more options for stuff they can do that.
And fun. They need fun. Yeah, because as you say, it is competitive. If you look at the social media side of things, it's all based on likes, which is competition, which is, so just an element of fun.
Yeah, I know. And that it does, it really sort of, I find it really sort of like hearing about that, all of the kind of Facebook and the Instagram thing. And I sort of remember watching that Social Network movie about Mark Zuckerberg, and the whole premise on which Facebook was built was basically guys looking at pictures of girls' faces and deciding whether they were hot or not.
Yeah.
Facebook of faces, and it's like, and I think because that's at its intention, that's at its heart, that hasn't sort of gone away. And I find that really sends the shivers up my spine, because actually that's the currency we're still kind of riding on. And that I don't think is healthy in any way, shape or form for certainly a developing mind, girl, boy, whatever that person thinks they are, because I just think you just don't need that at a time when you're just you, you're
you need to find out, I suppose, like, for us to be healthy adults, if you look at our generation, and we're kind of only now just really looking at mindfulness and yoga and how to kind of be present and be aware, and how many of us have already suffered burnout, or we've been people pleasers, or there's so many elements that have been quite toxic in our lives because of the messaging that we've been given as kids. So it's trying to kind of change that narrative, so that, because otherwise it's going to be quite a dangerous place, and I don't know what kind of adults we're going to have in in another 20 years with this young generation if we don't protect them to the best of our ability.
And just equip them as well, like equip them with some tools, some useful stuff. I mean, there's a really simple thing that lots of parents have come to me and said they love it, is there's this one video we do called Be the Pond, and it's a really simple idea where you are the pond, your mind is the pond, and there are lots of fish swimming in your pond. There's an angry fish, there's a sad fish, there's a happy fish, there's a tired fish, there's a silly fish, there's all these different fish. And the idea is that you're not the fish, you are the pond, and you just let the fish be the fish, you be the pond, and you don't have to kind of jump on and suddenly become the angry fish. You can just watch the fish go by, acknowledge that that's there, but you're the pond, and I think that just giving kids those sort of little understandings around how their mind is and how it works, so that they don't just react to everything, that they respond to things, because they've got the moment between sort of making a rash decision or actually going to stop, just take a breath and then make a decision. So I just think that
I think that's just as good for adults. I'm like, I'm the pond as well.
I'm the pond, and there's all my fish. And
all those fish are my different thoughts. And I can choose not to respond to the angry fish and to the silly fish.
Exactly.
I'm going to be the pond.
Be the pond. Come on, Natalie, be the pond.
But this is what I mean. But I think, again, what you're saying is... you are a quick teen kind of a younger generation, but equally as adults, we do need those lessons because we weren't given those tools. We are kind of struggling because we're on the back end of this digital kind of age that we're at kind of where we had it coming in, but equally it's moving so fast that we're still kind of on the periphery of it really compared to our kids. So we're dealing with it ourselves. And I just think, some of these amazing kind of lessons that you're teaching children are as valuable for the adults. And do you find that with your parents and kids, when they're doing it together, they kind of, you have that response?
Totally. And I get people write to me each week and it's lovely, and they're all over the world, and they'll say, I've got a neurodiverse child who has really been learning how to deal with his kind of trouble. Sometimes he gets really, anxious and really kind of stressed. And he'll start doing his kind of like nerve breathing, where he breathes in using his thumb and going down, breathing in and going down, just a little technique like that. And she said, and to be honest, I've been in the car and I've been driving, and he's gone, Mum, let's just do some breaths. Let's just be calm, and it will make all the worries just sort of settle down. And it's almost like these little, very easy sort of to remember soundbitey things that parents will say, to be honest, I've just used that. I just sort of had to use a little kind of like, breathing through, using my hand, just taking myself through 5 breaths in and out. And then I've been able to just sort myself out, Same with teachers, and I think this is what I get feedback from teachers, is that actually for the climate of a classroom and for that teacher's well-being, that's really important too, and really fundamental. And I really am so heartened to hear when teachers have, I know sometimes they put Cosmic Kids on because they've got stuff to get on with, but oftentimes they'll be joining in with the kids, and they'll be benefiting as much as the kids are from what's being kind of explained in a really simple way. And that's the kind of clarity of it, is just to be as simple and real and practical as possible. So there's no clever language. It's not all about kind of neuroscience and amygdala hijack and things like that. It's language everyone understands, so in that respect, I call like that little part of our brain that's the kind of like, I call it the guard dog, and the idea is like, okay, he's like he's going to jump out and like jump at anything the minute he senses any. But then at the front of our brain, rather than calling it your prefrontal cortex, which is just like what, it's our owl. He's our clever owl in the front of our brain who kind of thinks and has reason and makes sense of things. But sometimes the guard dog can woof a bit loudly, and you can't hear the little owl, so we've got to calm down the guard dog, and it's just trying to speak. And that totally transcends to the grown-ups in the room as much as it does the kids. And I have had some beautiful, wonderful feedback from some of our brilliant, loyal audience to just tell me that, and that's just amazing.
It really is. I mean, I just think that, when I think back to my own childhood and things and friends of mine that I know that we've suffered with whether it be anxiety, all kinds of things that have stemmed from childhood, and you're not knowing how to manage those feelings, how to manage them so that you become an adult and you're walking around as a, ball of stress and worry and it's, I think you think about somebody like the Duchess of Cambridge and her emphasis on the early years and how important those, 0 to 5 years are, because that really does set us up. And when you look at people in later life that perhaps develop addiction issues or all kinds of different problems, a lot of it goes back to, trauma that's not been dealt with in their early years. So it really is so important that we kind of get off on the right foot, isn't it, with these
Totally.
like younger years?
Yeah, absolutely. And that just being able to even recognize our feelings, just going like, I don't think I think this is probably why I do Cosmic Kids, because I didn't have, like you say, any awareness at all about, when I was sad or when I was angry or when I was, a bit tired. I just feel a bit funky and a bit like, and wasn't able to sort of put a label on it, or kind of go, oh, check that out, I'm feeling a bit, I didn't have that space. And I sort of think if we can just give kids the ability through stories, which I think are really powerful to do that there is this moment where you can get swept up in something and then just go, whoa, hang on a minute, what's that feeling? Ask the question, like, to check in with yourself. And I think it starts with senses. It starts with, what do I see, what do I hear, what do things feel like? It starts with that processing of our senses. And often, yeah, you're absolutely right, we'll be walking around in our 20s and 30s and we've all got some form of sort of sensory processing disorder, because we haven't actually learned how to receive the world and interpret it and notice the feelings that have popped up because of it. We're just a bundle of like a big ball of wool. It's all in a big knot, and then that's why we all end up in, a therapist's chair when we're 30, we're just like, oh.
That's what I mean, though. I mean, I'm finding, and I'm sure you will do definitely in your work, like the way that the media industry has really latched on to creating content for children. You look at something like Encanto and Sing and Trolls and all of these incredible films that are some of my most favorite films ever. Like Trolls is my favorite film.
Love it. Yeah.
And but the subliminal messaging that's in there, for adults and for children, the colour, the storytelling, that have got really deep messages that, children start to understand. I love that we've gone down that path for actually genuinely creating for a young mind. Do you agree?
I totally agree. And for me, the real big one was Inside Out. Do you remember?
Oh my God, yeah, that was so good.
What an amazing movie, and what a great way of just like suddenly making something that seems like brain surgery, suddenly accessible to us all, that we suddenly get it. We've got a moment of realization that this is all of us, this is me, this is you, this is everyone. And I get it. I was just I was so impressed with Pixar for doing that movie. And like you say, all the ones that are now feeding through, their messages are just as clear as day. And it's just wonderful that actually that talent of creativity and art and direction and song is all poured into helping kids. And that means that, I think Disney are one of the most amazing filmmaking companies in the world, but they have that in their DNA, that kind of, how do we kind of create a message that's going to be helpful and empowering. And it's how we align ourselves now as a business that gets more kind of partnerships coming our way to decide whether we do something or not, because actually, like, for instance, we worked with E1 on the My Little Pony movie that came out last year. And the thing that was so cool about that is then reinventing all of their ponies. They've got into how do we help kids find their sparkle, their uniqueness, and that totally aligned with us. And we were like, yes, okay, now we can get on board with this. When it's something a bit more sort of tenuous, we're a bit like, I'm not sure we can really, like Clifford the Big Red Dog, we were a bit like, not sure it quite kind of, connects with where we're coming from. So yeah, that whole kind of messaging, and it coming from all of the fun things that are in kids' lives, be it the movies, the musicals, all the Cosmic Kids, or the classroom, I think is how we, make sure, as you said earlier, that we are equipping our kids with some of these sort of real basic tools, so that when they do get into those troubling sort of teen years where the confusion starts to really kind of fester, or the 20s where you're kind of going, I don't know who I am, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know, I'm just making it up, that you're a bit more aware because you've done that early years work, that is so vital.
It is really vital. I mean, going back to you personally, because, you know, like you have to have an awful lot of energy to do, you know, the work that you do, to be able to kind of hold kids' attention. And especially, I suppose, you've got a two-pronged effect, because you can do it in real life, which is one thing, but then in being able to actually do that without a live audience, how do you kind of, for yourself, how do you prepare for that?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think, well, I did watch a lot of telly when I was little. I have to say, I think we all did, you know, but we only had 4 channels.
Exactly.
You know, so it was like, glued to the thing. And so I watched an awful lot of telly, and I think I learned a lot from that. I learned a lot from Floella Benjamin. I mean, I think that woman she's a legend in herself, but she would talk in play school or whatever, she would talk down the camera, and she'd be there doing something, and she'd just go, "Oh, hello," you know, and you'd be like, "I was just talking to me." Yeah. And I think that quality is actually what I really try and channel. It's that kind of, there's just one little person on the other side of that camera lens, as far as I'm concerned, when I'm doing what I do on the screen. And it's the idea that we are all in the room together. They're just on the other side of that lens. So I'm going to talk to that lens like I'm really talking to you, you know, and that's, I think, really important that kids feel that. And therefore, when I meet them in person, it's quite weird, because they do that thing where they come up to me and they go, "Hi, Jamie," you know, and it's like we know each other, you know, and I love it's adorable and gorgeous. And so I do spend a lot of time going, "Oh, great. So tell me about what you've been doing." And, you know, suddenly we're like, "Whoa, telling me everything." And they have this real, but some kids, because they've only ever seen me on a screen, when they meet me in person, they'll be giving me the side eye, like I'm some weird cartoon that's come to life, you know. And it's just like, how do I deal with,
she's not a mascot? She's real.
And she doesn't live in my mum's laptop, so what's going on? Like, how is this? You know, it's a mad thing, but
but you have to have so much energy. And I know that your mum was an aerobics instructor, wasn't she? And that requires a lot of energy too.
Total inspiration to me, my mum. Honestly, throughout the 80s and 90s, when it was like Jane Fonda, big style, you know, the leg warmers, the fluoro, the kind of the big hair. And there was my mum. She's very petite. She's only 5 foot, but she was in all the gear. She had a ghetto blaster, and she used to walk to her classes. I mean, the energy that she just had, just to walk with a ghetto blaster up the hill for 25 minutes, to go to an aerobics class, teach for an hour and a half, and then walk back again. You know, it was just extraordinary. And she did it 4 times a week, you know, and I think her and I would go with her, you know, often, because it was just her and I for a lot of the time. So we would be together, and I would go in my little outfit, and I learned so much from my mum, and just her ability to just really kind of raise that kind of energy in a room with all these, frankly, ladies, you know, bouncing around in their great leotards, was just a real inspiration. All the whoops, the cheers, you know, she had it all going on, and I was just like, wow. And I think that's part of her. I've got that gene somehow from her.
But that's the thing, though. It's about connecting people and having that group connection, you know, again, just from where you kind of have been elevated, shall we say, because you've already done so much work. But, you know, with the pandemic, finding that connection and being that connection for so many people, it's really key to our well-being, isn't it? That we feel part of something.
Totally. And that's something I really got. So from last year, I started then I was doing some of the festivals, and I went to Camp Festival, and I've never been to Camp Festival. And having been in everyone's living room for the past 2 years before that, it was quite a moving experience, because I was expecting, like, it was 10 o'clock in the morning. I was expecting 50 people. I got 50 yoga mats that I brought with me, laid them all out in front. And it was a big stage. I was a bit like, it's a bit of a big stage. I don't think, you know, anyway, 700 people rocked up to this, and I was just like, I mean, just me in my blue onesie with a little head mic walking out going, "Hello." You know, I hadn't done a show, I hadn't got like music or a, you know, big fancy kind of like show on. It was just like, "Shall we do some yoga?" And it was a real like moment. That I did a little meet and greet afterwards, and I met everyone. They all queued up, and they all came and said hello afterwards. And so many people were just a bit like, I feel like I know you, because you've been my kind of third parent in the kind of mix. And I I was really blown away. I mean, it was incredibly moving. It sort of gets me now a little bit.
It makes me go a bit.
Yeah, because I found it just like, oh my God, you know, I feel like I'm connected to all of you, you know, in a really weird way. You know, maybe that 5G mask thing is a thing. but you know, I was a bit like, wow, and it holds. And what's beautiful is that now we can go out again and we are able to go and meet each other live. I can actually go and say hello in person and give people a hug, and you know, and that it just actually all feels like it comes whole, you know.
I think for the what definitely just touched me then. Oh my God, I'm going to go again. Oh God. This is the one that I did not think that I would have a cry on, honestly. But I think it's when being a parent in that time was so unbelievably hard. It really was hard. I was at the end of my tether and my son's quite old compared to a lot of the younger ones. Yeah. To have somebody or something that could help you in any capacity was just like, thank you so much, because it was so tough. So literally what you're describing there, you were people's lifeline. You were people's person. And that's what I meant right at the beginning when I was said, you are like a real life angel to so many parents that were struggling and just thought, I just need 20 minutes just on my own of just
have a shower.
Just a shower. Just that desperation. Yeah. And, you know, new parents have that. And you were there. You were there for them. So when they come to see you, I can totally understand how they'd feel like that.
Oh, and it's amazing. It is incredible. And yet I totally feel it, like, and receive it. And that's the thing. It's just like, it's so strong and powerful. And it is words like lifeline, lifesaver, saving my sanity. You know, like these, and people are very clear about what it did and what it meant for them. And the other lovely thing is that how many people have said how they keep going with it. You know, it's not been something that's just sort of just gone away. Like, actually their kids now do it every weekend as a Saturday morning thing, or, you know, it's definitely a thing that it you know has held, which I find even more extraordinary, because, you know, I sort of thought, it's amazing that it's really served its function for the lockdowns, and it will probably all just go back to normal again, you know, afterwards. But it seems like actually the need is still there, and the habit has been created, and the kids feel very much like it's their thing that they can turn to whenever they need, as much as the parents can say, why don't you do some yoga, or why don't you pop on some Cosmic Kids, because, you know, you like that. And
so where are you going to go with it next then? You know, what are you going to do with it? Because there is a real need, and there is, you know, and you are facilitating a lot there, you know, parents and children. So where is it going to go next? We're going in all sorts of fun directions at the moment. So we're keeping the engine room going of creating that content that keeps it available for people. And also we really want to keep providing enough content on YouTube, because YouTube is the window to the world, you know, making sure that there's plenty enough of it free. But obviously then we've got our app, which is the thing that actually funds it, you know, that, so we have to make sure that what we're doing is making sure that app is really full of lovely content that all those wonderful app subscribers really love and enjoy and use very regularly. And the thing that we're really working on at the moment is something called CK Lab, which is us working with partners who are experts in their field. So, for instance, we're working with Grief Encounter at the moment, which is an amazing bereavement charity for kids. And we've worked with them on creating a yoga adventure and a mindfulness video to help children going through bereavement, going through grief, if they've lost someone close to them. That's not something I would be prepared to tackle just off the cuff, you know, do a bit of reading on the internet and then have a go at. Like this, what's occurred to us is actually what we can do with Cosmic Kids is reach kids that need it most, as well as reaching all kids in a kind of mainstream sense, but also making sure that we're helping kids that need it most. But we can only do that with the help of educational psychologists and people who are counsellors and know and work with kids regularly. That is incredibly exciting, and you know, building on the app and having that app again available for parents or just at the touch of a button, where they've got that information, that vital information that they need to help their children and themselves. Yeah, exactly, and it's practical. And the other thing about the app is it's a safe place. You know, it's that walled garden of
because that's the other thing we've found with YouTube, and it's an age-old thing with YouTube, is it is a rabbit hole. And kids love it for that rabbit hole kind of magic that it has, but it can be a bit of a wild west. And I think what we really wanted to do with the app is create this really, like, you can literally put it onto your kid's iPad, and that's all they can do on it if you want, so it is a very safe place and a safe way to have that content. So you don't have to worry about them kind of going, woo, what's that funny video with the Spider-Man doing that thing to Elsa? It's not got that risk involved. So we definitely kind of have to and really value the option that the app gives people.
Oh, so many fantastic things though coming, from you guys. And as you rightly pointed out, and will receive you, because you have been so incredible throughout this whole time. And, we really wish you so much success, like, going forward. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you with me and to get your insight. You've, given so much information, just how to keep our kids healthy, how to keep them happy, and how to get into their minds as well. So thank you for that.
Pleasure, Natalie. It's been a joy to talk to you about it and to sort of share what the sort of experiences have that we've had, but also just the kind of where we are right now with kids, with being parents, with being teachers, with trying to bring up happy, healthy human beings.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And to find out more about Cosmic Kids, please do visit www.cosmickids.com, where you'll find more helpful resources on children's wellbeing and be able to download the interactive app with all the videos on there. For more wellbeing, fashion and beauty, you can also visit us at our website, www.thecapsule.co.uk. You can also catch up with our previous podcast episodes by visiting the In Conversation page and subscribing to any of our podcast channels and YouTube. Please do feel free to leave your rates and reviews. You can also drop us a message at our Instagram @officialcapsule if you would like to speak to a future guest, or just leave us a message about any of the episodes you've heard so far. I will be back next week with another very special guest and more conversations of inspiration, but all that's left for us to say today is goodbye. So it's goodbye from Jamie. Bye! And goodbye from me. This episode of the Capsule in Conversation was brought to you by Harrogate Spring Water. Bottled at source, Harrogate Spring offers a pure, refreshing taste with a delicate blend of naturally occurring minerals and electrolytes, perfect for healthy hydration.